you're never really going to be alive until you start thinking about the big questions.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Good is in the Details. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Dolske, and this is part 3 of Podcast in the Time of Coronavirus. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everyone is safe. I hope everyone is healthy. I hope you're staying inside and doing your part for humanity, which is staying inside and Netflix binging. I asked, what are you missing? And overwhelmingly, the answers were people. So I thought maybe for this episode, we'd see what philosophers have to say about solitude. One of my favorite thinkers is Albert Camus, and one of my favorite novellas by him is The Fall. And in there, you have the narrator, Jean-Baptiste Clémence, who talks about the human being as double. There's the mask that we wear for the world. It's a theater, it's a stage. And then there's who we are when no one is watching. And how do you behave in those two settings? And that is what makes the human being the human being. What's interesting is that right now, our theater has been taken from us. So we are in solitude and we are learning what we are made of. Now, I thought I would get in touch with my good friend, Dr. Danielle Layne at Gonzaga University. She is a scholar on Plato and the Neoplatonists, and I wanted to know, what do the ancient Greeks have to tell us about solitude? If you haven't heard it yet, you should listen to episode 6, where she talks about ancient Greek philosophy as therapy. For this one, we'll be updating it to see what would the ancient Greeks tell us about quarantine. So I hope you enjoy it. Remember, wash your hands, and now you can enjoy the interview.
Hey, Gwenny.
Hi, Danny.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, since we talked last time about psychology and what the ancient Greeks could offer, I thought maybe we should do one on quarantine, because I think as philosophers, well, I know I'm doing okay, but maybe that's also because I'm on maternity leave. But a lot of philosophers like their alone time. But this can be really hard on people who are really extroverted or very social. And so I'm wondering, in this time of social distancing, what could we learn from the ancient Greeks?
Yeah, first I'd like to say thanks, Gwenny, for giving me this opportunity to talk about being quarantined, to talk about coronavirus, to talk about what a lot of us are probably going through right now, which is, what are we doing holed up in our houses with our kids, our lovers, our husbands, our wives, our spouses, and how are we going to manage this for an indefinite period of time? And I know that it sounds strange to think that ancient philosophers can help us work through some of the anxieties that we may be feeling. Maybe not just some of the anxieties, but maybe even some of our downright fears that are keeping us up at night. And I have a lot of different things that I could say about this. I'm not actually sure where to begin because there's just so much I could say. So I guess we could start with, what are some of the things that ancient philosophy teaches us about overcoming fear? So first off, maybe let's be articulate. What are we afraid of right now? Are we afraid of the coronavirus? Are we afraid of death that might result from coronavirus? And one of the things that the Stoics or the Epicureans would teach us about this problem, even Socrates was very famous for asking the question, what is X? Right? What can we know about the thing that we're afraid of, or that we want to pursue or not to pursue? And Socrates says what we have to do is really analyze that mystery, what we're confused about. And the Stoics and the Epicureans will pick up on this too, that one of the things that they think is absolutely essential for calming us down is to have a knowledge of it, and a scientific knowledge of it. So yes, both the Epicureans and Stoic would say one of the healthiest things that you can do, one of the greatest mental exercises, is to get a good grasp on the knowledge that you can have about it, and the scientific knowledge. So find reputable sources to understand what the coronavirus is and how it works. And for the Stoics, particularly, they would say, look, getting this knowledge is going to help you figure out what's in your control. For the Stoicism, that's the key to everything, that most of us worry about things that are not in our control. And for the Stoics, having knowledge of what coronavirus is part and parcel of realizing what I can control. Well, can I control whether or not the coronavirus spreads indefinitely from state to state to state? No, not really. But can I control how much it spreads here in my town of Spokane? Well, yes, I can self-quarantine. I can wash my hands. I can wear homemade masks. I can do a lot of various different things that are actually in my control. But should I spend my time worrying about every little thing with regards to this disease? No. Why not? Because it's not in my control.
I was just going to say, no, that's a really good point. I think something is that people should have knowledge of what's going on, that may have actually been one of the problems in the first place, is that we tried to sugarcoat it or act like it wasn't that big of a deal. And that actually drove us in the exact opposite direction of what we needed to do. And then also maybe, like you're saying, what's not in your control is that we're getting paralyzed by watching too much news.
Exactly.
But so you want to have that balance of know what's happening, but also be aware of what's in your control and stop being passive.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to be active and to recognize that you have a duty, is that what the Stoics would say, to have a knowledge about what's going on, but not to the extent in which you're paralyzed and you're afraid. That's irrational. That's to be too invested in things that are outside of your purview. Another thing that the Stoics and the Epicureans and the Platonists would teach us is, look, we're at home with our families and our loved ones. And many of us, particularly Stoic, would say, look, why are you afraid of death? Because aren't you kind of already living a life that's already dead? I.e., most of us spend our time doing things that really don't matter, right? We go to jobs we hate, we have conversations, we gossip about things that are trivial and ridiculous. And one of the things that the Stoics and the Platonists and the Epicureans would say, look, right now you're at home and you have a unique opportunity to really think about all the things that actually matter, right? That instead of having ridiculously stupid conversations with your partner about, just the mundane things of your day, why don't we take the time to really start thinking about what it means to be human, and what is this thing called love, and what is my duty towards other people? That all the ancient philosophers say, look, you're never really going to be alive until you start thinking about the big questions of being a living thing. And so the Platonists would say, look, this is an opportunity to talk to your kids in ways that allow them to really think about who they want to be in the future, and to practice a way of life that isn't just going with the flow. The Cynics were really good about disrupting, like doing activities that would disrupt us and make us think about, oh, wait, why are we living such a fake, pretentious life? Why don't we remember what's really valuable? And what really is valuable are the people that care for us and the things that sustain us, and that we don't actually need all that much to be happy in this present moment. The Stoics, too, would say, look, in this moment, we recognize our duty to the person sitting next to us, but also even our duty in the grand scheme of things, that this small little action that I am taking in self-isolation, it's not meaningless, no, but it's part of the bigger picture, the bigger tapestry of life. Well, even the Epicurean would say, look, this moment that you get to stay home, we spend a lot of our time, so the Epicureans love pleasure, but not pleasure in the sense of just drinking or eating food, because those are the kinds of pleasures that are ultimately dissatisfying, that would ultimately lead us into a life of just constant eating and drinking and constant pursuit of pleasures that can never be satisfied. But the Epicurean would say this moment is an opportunity to see that the truest pleasure is the pleasure of friendship, of connection with others who can allow us to really understand the value of reason and thinking rationally about this particular time that we're in. And so all of these philosophers really want us to recognize the connectedness that we get when we live a rational life, or the kind of life that is constantly attempting to be connected to other people.
Yeah, I think that just because of the global scope of this, that it being a pandemic, that notion of us being connected is absolutely radicalized right now. And also, I mean, something that I keep thinking about, and maybe this is from the existentialist background, but I just keep thinking about these two poles of what's going on, is that on the one hand, I see on Twitter or I see on Instagram these hilarious quarantine videos that are making me laugh, that are so creative, and they're just so wildly entertaining. And then by the same token, getting news updates about the devastation of what the doctors are going through, the fear that the nurses have. And it's like I'm trying to hold these two things, and it just seems to reveal this we're all feeling very human right now, I think, because it is a virus. I mean, so just as we're recording today, I just saw in the news that the Queen of England, that she has tested positive. So it's one of those. Yes. Yeah. And it is just one of those things where I'm thinking we just feel terribly human, because all of these other things that, like born into a particular status or wealth or all that stuff, all of it at the end of the day isn't nearly as meaningful as the relationships that you have. The way in which you spend your time, the experience of life.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely the heart of it, is that one of the beautiful silver linings is this kind of wake-up call to what it means to be human. That the cynics would say this, like, most of us spend our life doing just a lot of ridiculous, silly things. And coronavirus has really reminded us that there are very, very simple things that allow us to be happy. And one of the most important is relationships. And it doesn't mean relationships where I have to physically touch you right now or anybody, but rather the kind of relationships that come when we start asking or doing what you just said, recognizing how that human beings aren't merely impenetrable, autonomous, rational beings, but no, I'm scared and I'm also courageous, right? That I'm the kind of person who recognizes that I would rather be alone during this time, but I'm also very needy for other people. So that we're this is what a Platonist would say, that we exist as contradiction, that at the end of the day, we have to love the fact that we are both and, that I'm both the kind of being that wants to know everything I can about the coronavirus, but I'm also the same person who is watching silly cat videos. I'm the person who is most myself when I recognize that I'm confused and vulnerable and not pretending to be something I'm not. And that's what I really love about this time, is I think it's really, we see it in, viral videos of politicians. We see it, say with Trevor Noah on The Daily Show, that all of these public figures are really starting to show a much more tender, less staged caricature. And I hope that becomes a more realistic picture about what it means to be human going forward. I hope that from, if there is a time after coronavirus, that what it will be is a world in which we don't spend so much time being fakes. Yeah.
Well, I think that, the phenomenon of boredom is interesting, because it's because we are, as you said, just disrupted, that we run on autopilot often, just get up and go and forget about any significance or anything like that. Just forget about purpose, I guess, or the meaning of life, or what is meaningful, because we're on autopilot. And this has forced us to not be on autopilot, and not being on autopilot first stirs up some boredom, but then some other things might be unearthed, like, understanding more quality family time. I know a lot of people are making more phone calls now than they are texting. So I have actually had a phone conversation with different friends every single day.
Right.
Normally, it's just me and the cat.
I didn't think I would like Zoom, but I get excited to see people on Zoom now, because we don't really realize that. I mean, this is what the Stoics would say: we're all connected, and what it means to be human is to recognize that connection, and to recognize that connection doesn't have anything to do really with physical connection, as the Platonists would say, but rather with that voice, that hearing people reach out and actually want to be in relationship, and to acknowledge the value of that mere reaching out.
So what are you using Zoom for? Because I know you're on sabbatical.
I would have been doing it for online teaching, but I actually decided not to do Zoom for online teaching, but to do podcasts for my students. But I'm doing research for Platonism, and on Twitter there was a bunch of Platonists that I would really be interested in knowing a bit better, seeing how they respond to certain themes in my research, rather than just staying in my own little bubble as far as my research is concerned. And so, yeah, I had a book club Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Proclus's commentary on Plato's Republic. So.
Well, since I have you on the phone, I'm going to pick your brain about something. So Rudy, who I do a lot of co-hosting with for the show, he decided to pick up Marcus Aurelius, and I said, okay, I'll do it too. So we picked up the Meditations. Do you have any advice for us in terms of an underscoring theme or something that we should be paying attention to as we're reading it? Because in the previous podcast episode that you did with me, you mentioned him. So I'm wondering, for anyone else out there who wants to pick up in this time and read Meditations with us, what should we be paying attention to in that work?
Oh, there's so much. I would say, look, when you read Marcus Aurelius, the Meditations, you should actually have your own journal. Because remember that Marcus Aurelius, he's not writing as if he's a perfect sage. The reason why he's writing this text, the Meditations, is because he knows he's not perfect, right? And he's trying to be a better Stoic. And so each one of the little snippets that you're getting in each one of the chapters is an attempt to remind himself of what he needs to do. He's practicing, he's disciplining himself to become a better and better Stoic. And so don't read it with the perspective that he's some sage who already has it all right, but read it from the perspective of, this is an emperor who's seeing himself as vulnerable, is not always getting it right. But these meditations are his journal activity to kind of work through what he needs to be doing each day, each evening, all of the time. My favorite one, right? And so I invite you guys to read the first one. Often my students will think that the very first meditation is quite boring because all he's doing is thanking people in his life and for thanking them for various different things that they've done. But if you read it closely, you'll also notice that he's thanking people that he doesn't really like, that they were bad people to him. So he thanks one of his grammar teachers for teaching him the art of not being nitpicky, which, if you're a close reader, you realize, that grammar teacher was very nitpicky. So Marcus Aurelius is thanking people for teaching him virtues even when they weren't virtuous, right?
Okay.
And so, yeah, I would say, look, what you need to do is have a journal out with each and every single one of the meditations and ask yourself what meditation or what spiritual practice or what, to use more secular language, what therapy is Marcus Aurelius practicing on himself so as to get a better understanding of what is in his power and what is not in his power.
See, I think that this is a perfect read for this time.
I do too, actually. But I want to be careful. I want to put a little warning out because right now in social media, Stoicism has been appropriated by a lot of fascist and masculinist or sexist groups. So keep that in mind, right? So that I don't think that Stoicism is inherently sexist or inherently fascist, but a lot of people in what's called like the manosphere or the red pill world have in fact are using Stoicism in order to kind of promote a sexist ideology. And so try to read it and both know that that's out there in the Twitterverse, but at the same time, it's not necessarily inherent to what Stoicism is about, though it does have sexist connotations to it. So being womanish is often something that the Stoics frown upon.
Hey, there's still some people today who would frown on that. Someone tweeted out, it was so funny, is the whole history of philosophy mansplaining.
That would be fun. Yeah.
I thought that was a perfect tweet. It's like, yes, it is. No, but you know this, I know this. I mean, as philosophy students, we're always, I think as a woman, you're just aware when you're reading these texts that women are left out or being feminine is considered to be a negative thing. But
that's right.
But I think that if you can, I don't know, it wasn't enough to paralyze me or to stop me because I was able to see how these were just important human traits or human practices?
We should have a whole other podcast on this, Gwenny.
Okay. Oh, have you read Down Girl by Kate Mann by any chance?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. Okay, a whole other podcast. That sounds good. More topics.
I think that'll be fun, talking about because there's a whole lot of problems about how to think about the sexism of antiquity, and it takes me many weeks in my feminist philosophy courses to really get through how it is that we can even engage antiquity with regards to sexism. Because some people want to say, look, it's all, at the end of the day, these philosophies can be universalized and we can drop the sexism. But then other feminists would say, well, that's a way of, in fact, making the universal just a man, and so that women have to become men in order to really read into and take value of, say, something like Stoicism. So the criticism against Stoicism is that it downgrades the emotions in favor of reason, and reason has been constantly associated with men, and emotions have been identified with being feminine, and so that if I want to be a good Stoic, then I need to excise the feminine from what it means to be human, and that's why Stoicism can be a bit problematic.
I see. Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely run into that.
We want everybody during coronavirus to see some of the good of Stoicism. So don't forget that just because the Stoics might have a problematic philosophy in certain ways doesn't mean that they aren't helpful during this time of coronavirus.
Oh yeah, no, I run into that with Aristotle when I teach it. I mean,
absolutely,
you can't help but notice. Well, yes, I mean, I'm glad that you offered your time for this, because I am hoping, or I'm trying to see some possibilities in this time of quarantine that that there's an opportunity to be reflective. And it just seems like philosophy, has been begging for humanity to be reflective forever, that there's that possibility. But, I was also thinking, people losing their jobs and just being terrified and just trying to figure out, okay, how do we get through this really with this economic downturn and with this health scare? We're all in it. How can we help each other out? How can we stay calm? And then how can we grow? I guess that's one of the biggest things, is that how can we grow?
Or transform.
Right.
That might be what's needed of us now. So.
Right. Okay. Any other words of wisdom?
Yeah, read your Stoicism, your Epicureanism, Platonism. They're all online for free. So
yes, they're all online for free.
You don't need to Amazon them. So, just take the time to sit down with these amazing texts.
Okay. Thank you, Danny.
All right. Bye, Gwenny.
Bye. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can email me at goodisinthedetailspod@gmail.com. You can tweet me at @gdolske. You can DM me on Instagram. I mean, there are just so many ways. Anyway, stay safe, wash your hands, stop hoarding the toilet paper. And if you want to become a patron for as little as $2 to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/goodisinthedetails. Bye.
Have you already started recording?
Yes.
Oh. I didn't know.
I text you if I sound cheesy or anything. It's because I'm recording from the moment we pick up the phone.
Oh, I didn't see that one yet. I was looking to the kids. I am so sorry.
Are you wondering, why is she talking to me like this?
Yes. All right, I'm sorry. Can we start over?
Yes.
Okay.